Hey, everybody. Welcome to another brand new episode of Hey Man, It's Okay, a men's mental health podcast. I'm Sky Bridges, and while I'm not a professional, I am a student of mental health and a guy who believes that these conversations matter. And I'm here to learn and grow right alongside you.
And I'm Ryan Heapy, your licensed marriage and family therapist out of Newport Beach, California. I say that gleefully because it's so beautiful today. I'm staring out at this beautiful weather. And anyway, today we have an amazing guest named Zander Keig, who has recently written a book, A Non-Conformist Guide to the Universe. Sorry, The Third Space, A Non-Conformist Guide to the Universe. And someone who he's a veteran, worked at the VA for a long time, and a licensed social worker. Xander, thank you for coming here today. Thank you for talking to us. We have quite a bit to talk about.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for the invitation. Good to be here.
Yeah, yeah. Well, why don't you just briefly or long form tell us about the book and yeah, some of the insights that you've written down on there. It sounds like you have had a truly fascinating life, one that's worthy of writing a book about.
That's what people kept telling me, so I decided I should probably do it. As I mentioned before we started recording, this is just my life. I'm fish in the water, so I don't really, I'm not paying attention to all these things over all these years. And then people point them out and they go, "You did what? That happened to you when? That's really interesting. You should write a book." And I'm like, "Oh, okay. It's just my life here." Yes. So I was born and raised in Los Angeles. So, digging the the Newport Beach kind of area. That's very cool. I grew up in Torrance. We're down to beach area, so
Yeah.
not so far away from.
Mhm.
Um, and my family is Mexican from Mexico. My first generation, born here in the United States, and so I was raised in this Mexican Catholic family in Los Angeles. I was born in 1966, so I'm 59 years old, quite a while ago. And culture changed and shift through society, but things I'm talking about growing up in the 70s and the 80s, and things were different then. And so it was pretty obvious to me really early on in life that I was just always naturally oriented towards doing something different than what other people wanted me to do. And it wasn't intentional. It wasn't like I was being obstinate or, I mean, I was rebellious to a certain degree, but not, there was no mean spiritedness to it, if you know what I mean.
Yeah,
I
not like
just,
a rabble rousing way. Just
no, I just,
the norms didn't quite fit.
they didn't, and so it started with really simple things that had to do with the kind of clothes I wanted to wear and the kinds of activities that I wanted to engage in. And those were mostly related to gender norms, as we might call them now.
Thanks, guys. We're back after some technical difficulties. Let's get right back into our conversation.
Well, what are some things maybe that are on your mind now, either culturally or helping others or leaving an impact? Where would you say your work is sort of taking you either next or what's kind of on the forefront of making an impact for you right now?
Yeah. Thanks for that question. For the last, 5 years or so, 5 or 6 years, give or take, I've been engaged or involved with some organizations as a volunteer, but, doing work for them. One is called Braver Angels.
Mhm.
And so they were founded following the 2016 election when there was all of that strife between families and in workplaces and in society. And one of the founders is actually a marriage and family therapist who teaches at a university in their marriage and family therapy program. And he said, "Oh, the struggles that are happening are a lot like what they deal with in couple counseling or family counseling." So he brought those ideas into a workshop format, and Braver Angels was born. And so the idea is depolarization, right? Working on depolarizing in our, here, let's mostly the United States, talking about the United States. And then I've also been involved for a number of years working with Daryl Davis in pro-human movement work. For those of you who aren't familiar, Daryl Davis is a Black man who befriends Klans members to find out why they hold the racist views that they do, or white supremacist views that they do. And over the course of the last 30 or 40 years, hundreds of neo-Nazis and Klansmen and Klanswomen, of course, have renounced those beliefs and left those hate organizations. And so the depolarization work and the pro-humanist or pro-human work are the two areas that I feel like my life experience, my education, my training, they work really well in these environments, right? Bridge building is another way to say it, right? If polarization is happening, how do we depolarize? One way to do that is through bridge, right? Trying to build bridges between those polarized groups or ideas. And what's one of the ways to help do that? To humanize those individuals who are on those sides, so to speak. So I find that the conflict analysis and resolution education, my social work education, my theological education, my life experience, my work experience, it lends itself really well to this work. I wouldn't say it's more important now than ever, because it's always been important. Since the birth of our nation, we've had these kinds of problems that we have now. It's not new for us, but they kind of come and go. It ebbs and flows. And so we're kind of in a bit of an up right now as far as things that are going on. And it's breaking up families, and it's breaking up marriages, and it's breaking up work. It's just destroying a lot of connections. And a lot of it has to do with the inability to see the other as a human that you may disagree with wrongly, you may oppose strongly, but they are a human being, right? And so that's definitely been helpful for me to be able to, like, how can I go into a space, which I do on a regular basis, how can I go into a space with people who think, I don't know what they think, but the assumption is that they might think things like, or believe things like, I shouldn't exist, right, as a trans person, that I'm delusional, that I have a mental illness. I mean, technically, gender dysphoria is a psychiatric diagnosis in the DSM, but they mean a lot more than that. That I'm going to hell. Like, how is it that I can go into these rooms? And it's I can go into those rooms because those are human beings that hold beliefs that I don't hold, but I'm curious. I want to understand. Why do you thought or believe? Where does it come from? What would it mean if evidence was, proposed that challenged it? How might you respond to that? And oftentimes what I'll do is I will just talk to people without disclosing that I'm trans. I just talk to them. I can talk their language because that's why I went to seminary. I want to be able to talk to religious people.
I love that you took that stance to understand where the judgment or hate was coming from, that you went to great lengths to truly understand where those people either find their beliefs and then didn't just cut them off, or actually, this is what like true empathy is. And I think actually one of the greatest disservices I think that has happened over this last week, whatever side you're on, and I don't know even that there should be much of a side, but that I've seen so many people unfollow, stop talking to another side. And this only further entrenches wherever you are, left or the right, deeper and deeper into your own either echo chamber or just thoughts and ideas that are only exactly like yours. And I just think it's such a travesty that, the response to a lot of this has been sort of banning excommunication, when really more understanding and empathy is really the way out of here. And I'm really disappointed as to where we're headed.
Yeah, in a time when
Yeah.
we should be so connected, it feels like we're just
Um,
being pushed further and further apart. And Xander, you talking about that connection being important, even the connection to your families. We're losing that right now. We're losing families. We're losing the connection between people because maybe social media, maybe we know too much about each other now. So where's that balance? How do you find I want to talk about myself? How much is too much? So I think that social
Yeah.
media plays a huge problem right now as well.
Yeah. I mean, definitely, I think social media, just because we're airing our grievances much more publicly than we ever have, because they're accessible by many more people than just the town square. But, you know, I think I'm not on social media. So I think that's one of the things I say to people: get off social media.
smart,
Because
smart.
since I'm not on social media, I don't see the world or our society here in the state as polarized as my friends and colleagues who are on social media more, because social media is where it is sort of happening, right? You've got somewhere between 7 and 8 to 9% of people are on the far left, and somewhere between 5, 6, 7% of people are on the far right in our society. That's a very small, we're talking like less than 15% of our society is far either direction. And most people are somewhere in the middle. And so there are many more people that we can actually connect with. And there are always going to be people like Daryl Davis talks to people that are on the far right. And there are other people that are going to talk to people that are on the far left. But most of us are going to be reaching out just center left, center right to the majority of people, because some people may not be reachable, at least not in a time and place that is conducive to someone's well-being. Right? Not everybody has the wherewithal to be able to really stick with it. I don't know how Daryl Davis spends hours and hours with neo-Nazis and white supremacists. Like, I just don't. That's really difficult. But then other people might say the same thing for me. Xander, I don't understand how you can spend time with the conservatives. And it's, oh, that's easy. So it's all based on the perspective. But there's also a sense in which time and place, I think, matters, right? Is a holiday with the family the right time and place to launch into some activist rhetoric? I don't think so, personally.
No.
Yeah.
I don't. Like, now, some people might say, what if Uncle so and or Aunt so and they're going off on their stuff? And it's in my family, I just I just shut up. They're older than me, right? So I don't have any problem with those kinds of traditions. I do respect my elders. I don't challenge them in that kind of way. I just don't. And pros and cons to that, I would imagine people have. But I'm a big supporter, a fan of time and place. I'm sure you've run into this, Ryan. Maybe you have this guy. When you talk to people and they have this litany, it's like a laundry list of all of the people, places, and yeah, people and places they have problems with. Everywhere they go, they have a problem. And it's especially with DBT, you gotta at some point you have to say, so you're the common denominator here.
Yep.
Well,
Uh,
I'm not having all those problems everywhere I go. I have problems from time to time. Everybody does. But if it's every person you interact with and every place you go to and every job you have, I'm sorry, but you're the common denominator in that. And that's probably not a popular thing to say, but I think time and place really matters, these issues. But Josh brought up, how do you be a good ally and an advocate? Like, how do you do that? Because some people would say, I'm being a good ally or I'm being a good advocate when I raise these issues at the family holiday potluck. The test is, how'd it go for you? How'd it work? How'd it work out? It's something different next time. So some people are going to find a responsive audience, others aren't. Receptive, I mean, audience. Some will not find a receptive audience. So sometimes it's just a matter of using different words or bringing it up at a different time with individuals instead of everybody at a table or in a room together. Using different, not being, you mentioned it earlier about postmodern, right? if you use that postmodern gobbledygook, people don't know what you're talking about. That's not a language that most people speak. So we have to bring it down. We have to take it out of the academy and bring it into lay terms, everyday speaking terms. And then people might hear us if we use those kinds of terms. But, I'm not on social media, like I said, but I have been reaching out to people that I know. I actually am friends with people who were very close to Charlie Kirk, actually. I was familiar with him, of course, but since I'm not on social media, not very much. But of course, I knew about Turning Point USA. I knew about these things just through my work with Braver Angels, but I wasn't, I didn't know all of the different things that he was saying and championing, but I have a couple of friends and they're part of the LGBT community.
Mhm.
And that's, I think, important for people to know is we're not a monolith, right? We're very different within our community. We have different religious views. We have different political views. We have from different socioeconomic and geographic and racial and ethnic backgrounds. We don't all think alike. And to expect that we do, I think, is part of a problem. And the one thing that I have noticed, not very much because I'm not seeing it, but I bet if I was on social media, I'd see it a lot, which is the more dehumanizing responses, that the hate begets hate kind of response. And it's, yeah, if they were hateful words, I'd be all for it. But hateful words being matched with bullets is not equivalent to. And people have asked me, are you going to say anything? Are you going to put anything out there? And I'm like, no, I'm not very educated on this issue. And I wouldn't really know what to say beyond the basic things, which is human beings deserve dignity and respect, whether you agree with them or not. And in the United States, we have the ability to speak freely, and we should allow that to play out. And we can choose whether we want to be present during that speech or not.
Mhm.
And we can get involved to a degree that keeps that speech that we don't like from becoming law, policy, procedure, statute, yada. We can do that work. That's my way of responding, is to do the work that keeps us open rather than closed. There's always going to be limits, but there's always going to be limits to what is accepted when you live in a society where you have to interact with people who have come from all over the world to live here, and we have to live together. So how do we do that? We can't. I don't think it's going to be very successful if we try and shove things down people's throats or into their brains. You must change your thoughts. You must change your feelings. You must change your beliefs. That's not going to work very well.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't. It doesn't when you're a teenager, when your parents are, right? Like we rebel against control, against things being pushed on us. And a lot of people also end up becoming really resentful when these things are constantly, when there's almost like a consequence to so many of these things.
Yeah. And because we have options, I could choose to be very angry and I live right outside of Portland, Oregon. That's right. I'm outside of Portland. I could, on any day of the week, go to Portland, Oregon and get into all kinds of shenanigans. There's enough going on over there, but that's not my choice, right? My choice is not to do that. I'm doing other things. I'm not going to not do anything, but I remember when the Gulf War broke out, the first one. I was in the Coast Guard at the time, and people would say, oh, we're going to go to this anti-war demonstration. You want to go? And I'd say, no. They were like, what are you, pro-war? And I'm like, no, I'm pro-peace. I'll go to a peace rally. I'm not going to go to an anti-war rally, because those rallies were angry and there was always some sort of violence. They weren't at the peace rallies. So it's the same thing here. If I go and demonstrate, it's going to be in the affirmative, right? It's for something, not against something.
Pro-human,
Yeah.
as you said, right? Yeah.
I love that.
I'm pro-human, right? I'm pro-humanity, right? If Daryl Davis, and people should go watch his TED Talks, if Daryl Davis can sit across from a leader at the national level of the Ku Klux Klan on a number of occasions, interviewing him for a book he was writing called, I think it's called The Klan Whisperer. Um, then if Daryl Davis, as a Black man, can find a way to humanize the Klansman, and in those efforts, he became human to them, and then they walked away from that organization and from those beliefs, that to me is the pinnacle of the work. That's
That's
if
really
people can
phenomenal.
strive towards it. I don't know how achievable it is for most people, but it's strive worthy.
It definitely takes bravery to fight against the norms. So I wish we could all learn that and learn to be brave and stand up for one another and just look at each other as people instead of as what you think we believe in, what and you think who we are.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to do it because the alternative is not appealing to me.
Yeah. Xander, we're getting so close to the end of our time here this afternoon, and I want to thank you so much for joining us and having this conversation because I feel like there's so much more that we could talk about. So before we end today, what's one last thought you'd like to leave our listeners with? And also tell us where they can find your book and where they can see if you have any other future projects coming out.
My goodness. Let me start with where they can find out more about me and the things I'm doing. That would be my website, so zanderkeig.net. I'm also on LinkedIn. If you call that social media, it's the only one I'm on. I guess that's Substack, but I don't think that's social media. But on my website, that's where they can find out about my books and my podcasts and the work that I do and the organizations that I do volunteer work for.
Okay, and why don't you do your podcast really quick?
Yeah. So one of my podcasts is called The Umbrella Hour, and the other is called The Third Space.
Great.
So they're two different podcasts. And yeah, so something I'd like to leave with. At the end of my book, I leave a call to action for people, and I'll paraphrase because I'll remember exactly what I said. But the call to action was find a way to prioritize your own life, your own well-being, invest in yourself. We're so focused on what's happening over there, with them, or with us. No, it's me. What's happening with me, and what can I do to increase my well-being, and then do that thing or do those things. So that's my call to action to people that I like to leave them with is do what you need to do to increase your mental, physical, emotional, social, financial, spiritual, and all other physical well-being. It's all important.
Yeah. Awesome. I love that so much. Thanks so much for being on this episode of Hey Man, It's Okay With Us. We really enjoyed the conversation. You gave us so much information that I'm definitely going to have to go back and listen to a couple times to just be able to digest all of it. Thanks so much again. We appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Zander. I really appreciate the work you do. And I mean, it's really admirable. And I think it was so fitting that we had you on at the time we did, and love your position on and perspective on life and the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
Appreciate you. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. I thank you also just for the work that you're doing. I think it's really important that there is a show just like this, right? Because as men, we need to talk to each other and talk about what's going on. And we didn't do a lot of hyper focus on that in particular this session, but I think what we did and we were to cover is just what our perspective is as men on these various topics, which is not always what people hear.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Great. That does it for this episode of Hey Man, It's Okay, everybody. I want to thank you so much for tuning in and staying with us. Please make sure to like, comment, subscribe, follow us on all of our social media. Everything is at Hey Man, It's Okay. And until next time from Sky, it's okay to not be okay, everybody. Thanks for stopping by.
Thank you, guys. Peace. Thank you, guys. Peace.